you are now, or you'd like to be when you finish your degree or your certification. So when you do that, you could use that in both classes. Just make sure you post it on the first discussion board thread in both classes so that you get 100 points in one class and 100 points in the other class towards your 1,000
points. What I need
points.
to learn is how to do that.
Okay, we can do that for you. And we have Dr. Thompson here, who is the expert on all of this. She's been through all of this and helped set it up and has adjuncted for us and taught these classes as well. So we have talked about, and there's also some old videos. How many of you have gone in and seen some of my old videos already? You found those?
Well, I was in one of your classes.
Okay, so those old videos still apply. You know, those old videos. I hope you didn't try to learn to play the dulcimer. There's a dulcimer video in there, and a guitar, and a fiddle video, and mandolin, and a few other things. Now, you might like those, okay? But for our program, if you'll put in Dr. Carl Farinelli, and usually it says lecture, a bunch of lectures will come up, and some of them will actually give you ideas for postings for this class, and they'll help you through the projects. And if you don't find a video, then call me or email me, and I'll make one for you, and I'll put it on YouTube for you, okay? So, and I might even ask you to call me and let me put it on speakerphone so we can have that two-way conversation. It's easier for me to do a video when you're here because you can tell me, oh wait, that's not clear. Or you can tell me what you think is a better idea. Because a lot of times students improve these courses by telling me what would work better for them, okay? So let's talk about first concept, and that is the idea that even though this is online, it is not what Dr. Thompson was describing. Do you want to talk about that other model that we don't do?
Well,
that you researched, that you have looked at in your research?
One of the first, I started my dissertation on learning styles in the online environment, and one of the things that I noticed that my entire master's degree was that way, and so that only covers one type of learning style. And I don't know about you, but I learn, you know, through video and hearing and like different ways. I'm more, you know, right brain. And so to just read a black and white piece of paper and then write papers, that's hard for me. I mean, I survived. I made it through my master's degree. But when you take a class that has more, I learned so much more. And I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm not going to do as much work. But I ended up actually doing more work, but it was more, you know, it was more intrinsic learning. Like I was interested. And so I was like, I'm going to look this up and I'm going to do this and I'm going to try this. So I ended up working a lot more unintentionally, but I enjoyed it and I learned so much more by doing a field base. And it benefited my school also because all the projects I was doing and I was telling Dr. Farinelli and doing videos on and writing about, but they were all things that I were doing in my school. So one of them was like a leadership program where high school students came down and helped with the younger students and kind of mentoring and stuff. And I was so excited. This year, our principal was like, we have 13 students coming from the high school to go into the elementary classes. So it's neat things that have a lasting, you know, it's not just something that you're like, what did I learn in that class? What class was that? You know, you actually remember these things and you learn from it, I think.
So what she has researched is she has contrasted one model of online, which is get a textbook, read a chapter, take a test, or read a chapter, write a paper, read a chapter. Any of you ever taken courses like that? Okay, and so, you know, how many of you love, I mean, it's not bad to say you love that environment. It's very simple to do. And if the book really is something that you need in your life, you know, if the information is really something that applies to what you, where you are, where you want to go, I could see that that would work fine, right? You know, certainly if you were taking a medical class and you were needing to learn anatomy, you probably would want to follow anatomy book and do a chapter about, you know, what one system of the body and then do a chapter about another system of the body, you know. So we're not putting that system down. It has a good application in certain places. But what I find, and this is, I'm beginning my 30th year here, What I have found is that most of our scholars in the program are really interested in blooming where they're planted, taking the courses and modifying the courses to help them improve instruction in their classroom, sometimes in their grade level, sometimes in their subject areas, sometimes in their entire school. Matter of fact, Dr. Thompson mentioned character education. I've had some students, after taking my curriculum course, Mr. Webb, you're taking that one, that starts at week number 8, and that 5th curriculum that we talked about, the one that's beyond testing. It includes testing, you can use testing, but it also includes a lot of things that are hard to test, like character, or helping your community, or working in groups. Things, tribal values like Gadugi, which is we work together, or Otakwe Miyasin, all my relations of the Lakota people. Those kinds of values sometimes are difficult to show on an individual test score, that the person is really learning the value of that culture that is so tribal or group oriented, helping your neighbor, that kind of thing, right? And so there are these things in the 5th curriculum, some things that can be easily tested, but there's some things that are hard to show on a standardized test. And so that was what Dr. Thompson really looked at in her research, especially her dissertation, which was on why you get rid of the incentive to cheat if you allow students to do their work where they need to do their work. In their communities, or in their schools, or in their families, or in their churches. It's hard to copy a paper when you are the first person doing that work in your community. If that's something brand new that you're doing for your students, why would you cheat on that, right? Because that's something you want to do well. So that is the first lecture. First lecture is that our classes, that any of these online classes you take with me, generally do not follow a traditional online read a chapter, take a test. It's not text driven. It's really you driven. Each of you. You drive your curriculum. So I have a little joke that I say for that, or just a little, I'm from Arkansas, so I like to put things into folk sayings. I like things I can put on a bumper sticker. And so I tell my students, wag the curriculum. Don't let it wag you. So when you see the video out there on YouTube where I'm talking about wag the curriculum, that's what I'm talking about. I want you to modify any of these assignments to fit what you need, what your school needs, what your students need. Now, if you're not working in a school right now, then you might modify these to fit a school where you would like to work. Or you might modify it to fit your church, or your community, or your family. You might volunteer in a school. So do all of you right now, just with that one little introduction, you can call it field-based studies, or you can call it wagging the curriculum, or you can call it me-centered, my school-centered, using my school as a textbook, whatever you want to call it. Can all of you see a value in that approach for you, or is that a little scary? Yes.
Can I give an example?
Sure. That's what we need.
I took your class last semester for school facility, and there was a project that was due that we were working on. I want to say it was a crisis plan or emergency plan. Crisis plan.
Yeah, the crisis communication in the school.
And I asked Dr. Farinelli, because we were having to revamp our student handbook, and our student handbook was only like 8 pages. And so
you're in a little school, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of things are not written down. They're just kind of
right. So we need to bring that all up to date, with all the important information. And so I asked him, is that something I can substitute in, because this is something that we actually need, and I'm working on it. And he was like, sure, that's no problem. So that was very beneficial for me, because I understood the crisis plan, but right then, I mean, I would have been working on 2 different projects where I could just work on the student handbook, getting it in compliance, and then bringing it up. So it was beneficial.
So that benefited your school, it benefited you,
Yes.
and it made that class probably a lot more real for you.
Yes.
And I remember that, and you did a good job. So, and you stayed on time. That's what's hard with doing these school projects. Sometimes their timeline is running way behind ours. And so the fact that you were able to finish that on time, usually what I tell students is if you can't finish on time there, then tell me what you would like to do or what you're planning on doing. Put it into the subjunctive. If I were in charge, this is what we would do. You see, that if I were, if I were the king, if the school district was my school district, this is what we would do. Dr. Thompson, when you were taking that facilities class, you were the first one to initiate doing virtual classroom tours. No one else in that class knew how to use their video cameras and their iPhones to go in and videotape, and you did a module for that. And I think most of the people in your class actually did video tours and shared them with each other, or at least on your team, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We did. It was neat because, and he's going to talk about this in a minute, but TwoFirst and our principal had required us to read a book on, was it? Yeah, I think we were required to read a book on a principal in Tulsa that had taken the school and turned it around and made it into, like, instead of a low performing school where the police were called every week, to a safe place where the students were thriving. Anyway, so I had just finished reading that book and writing something for another class, and I was like, oh, I really want to see the school. I'm just going to throw it in there together. So I went to the school. Well, I called and got an appointment and went and toured it and did the video, and then I put it into that. So that was a great way to link the 2 classes and not do extra work, but just kind of have it into one project.
You still have that video out there on YouTube?
I probably do.
Okay. Well, maybe make that available. Well, I'm going to end then, unless you have questions. We're almost at 15 minutes. And I want to make sure this will download. Is the concept of this being field-based or you-centered, your school is your textbook, does that make sense to everybody? Now, if you want to get a textbook, that's great. There's several that I recommend. There's some that are wonderful.